very much. I appreciate that.
Recording in progress.
So when we talk about risk, and Oscar says, I don't want to take risk, I agree. I don't want to take risk either. But I know that Oscar's referring to risk of principal. And that's only one of 5, there's actually tons of different types of risks, but one of 5 main risks that we discuss. So one is principal risk. Right now, I refer to it as FIMPL, FIMPL. It's just for whatever reason in my head, I can, like pimple, FIMPL. I can remember it that way. So the first is financial risk. That's risk of principal. The second is interest rate risk, right? When you're getting 0.5% on your money and you have $1 million, you're getting $5,000 a year of interest. If you were planning on making 5% a year in interest and making $50,000 a year of interest and living off of that, and suddenly interest rates go down, you will start spending your principal to live, and your principal will decline. So even though you have no risk of principal when you have a guaranteed interest rate, if the guaranteed interest rate is lower than you expected, you will see your principal go down, which in the end has the same impact as financial risk. So sometimes people jump out of the frying pan into the fire and say, I don't want to be in the market, I'll put it in the bank, and their principal goes down. The third is called marketability. Marketability is, do you have access to your money when you need it? A lot of times people will say to me, I own a lot of real estate, I have no real cash, I have no investments, everything's tied up in real estate. That's great when real estate's doing great. It's great when you don't need access to a big chunk of money. But if you have an emergency and you're in the wrong place at the wrong time and you have to sell, guess what's going to happen? You're going to have a fire sale and you're going to have a hard time. In today's world, you put a house on the market today, on Friday, and it's sold by Monday. Wasn't too long ago that you put a house on the market and it took 6 months or 8 months or even a year to sell the house. It wasn't too long ago that you put a house on the market for this and people offered that and then you had to negotiate down. Now you put a house on the market for this and somebody offers you that and you're insulted. How dare you offer me my price? You should offer me $50,000 more, right? So it's a very different world today, but it won't stay like this forever. Everything is cyclical. The fourth risk is purchasing power risk. That's inflation. So purchasing power risk says, hey, a person says, I got a great pension. It pays me $5,000 a month. I'm so thrilled with my pension. Well, that's wonderful. Congratulations, you got $5,000 a month. But if that $5,000 a month doesn't have a cost of living adjustment, then 10 years from now, it's going to feel a lot like $4,000 or $3,000 or $2,000, depending upon inflation, right? So inflation is one of those things that people have a hard time, most clients have a hard time getting their head around. They go, yeah, I know things cost more. But they still think in terms of steady dollars. Hey, 5,000 today is the same as 5,000 10 years from now. It isn't. So here's the way I talk about it. Remember, we were just showing that article that was talking about how people were falling behind in their wages. They're getting raises, but they're falling behind. So what does that mean? Okay, so Lisa gets a raise, and she goes, hey, I got a 3% raise, but inflation's 8%. She just fell behind by 5%. But she has a hard time understanding that, doesn't she? Now, she may feel it in her budget. She may go, hey, things are getting tighter. But she has a hard time logically or emotionally understand. She should say logically understand it because she goes, hey, my paycheck's bigger this year than it was last year. So here's the way I explain it to people. I say the only reason you want money is so you can buy stuff. So if a year from now you can buy less stuff with that money, then you're losing purchasing power. You're falling behind. So even if you get a raise, even if the amount of money goes up, if you can buy less with it, then you're falling behind. Would you agree? Yes. Then we need a plan to keep you ahead of the rising costs. We can't be in a position where every year we keep being in a position where we buy less and less and less with the same amount of money, right? Okay, so that's what's happening right now with wages. I might as well just complete the thought in terms of the 5 risks. And the last risk is called longevity, which is people tend to live longer than they expect. I just had a conversation earlier today with somebody who said, we were talking about something, and he goes, yeah, I decided, to spend $2,000 a month more in retirement, because things are going really good. Well, it's great that things are going really good, but in your 80s, you could wind up running out of money because you're spending more than we had talked about. And he goes, I'll be dead in my 80s. Now, I've never had one person accurately predict their death. Not one person. I've had people die suddenly, right? They didn't predict it. But every person that has said to me, hey, I got heart problems, I got this, I got that, I'll be dead in 5 years. Not one of them was right. Every single one of them was still alive. Every single one. And people tend to live longer than they expect. Because in their mind, it just we're kids programmed looking at our grandparents going, oh my God, 75 is so old. But in reality, forgetting COVID's changed everything recently. But every decade, life expectancy tends to go up a year to a year and a half. So it's a moving target. And you all know the statistics about living into your 90s. A married couple has a 25% chance of this and that. And so there's a great chance that people, at least one of them lives into their 90s. And so longevity becomes a real issue. And sometimes people will say, well, what if I die in 2 years? And then I say to them, well, then none of this really matters, does it? The only reason that you financially plan is because you're worried about outliving your money. Right? If you're going to die next year, then it doesn't really matter. If you made 10% on your money, 30% on your money, if you went down 10%, it doesn't matter. You died next year, you'd be fine. Hey, did I use the right Social Security claiming strategy? It doesn't matter. On your deathbed, you're not going to turn around and go, I wish I had taken Social Security a year earlier, right? That's not going to be what's going to go through your mind. So we financially plan for the long term. So those are the 5 risks when we talk about that. Okay, so let's go back to what I was just showing. So people feel like they're getting this raise, but they're actually falling behind. So the average worker fell behind by 3.7%. But wait, that's wrong. Why is it wrong? It's wrong because it doesn't account for taxes. So Laura gets, I'm going to use a simple example. Laura gets a 5% raise, inflation is 8%. They would say, Laura fell behind by 3%. She right? She didn't. If inflation was 8 and she got an 8% raise, then she broke even. But that's not true, because Laura's 5% was taxed. Laura didn't get 5% more in her paycheck. Laura got 4% more, or 3.5%, or 3%, or something like that, right? Even if Laura got an 8% pay raise and inflation was 8, Laura didn't get 8% net. Laura had to pay taxes. So Laura still was falling behind with it. So even that, and it's an important thing because, again, when you talk to clients and they say, oh my gosh, the stock market's so crazy, I should put the money in the bank, you're going to fall behind with it. What you're saying is I don't mind a guaranteed loss of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8%. Right? Okay, so let's move on from there. Now here's an interesting thing. Okay, 2 days ago, this was a screenshot. Okay, the Fed had a historic rate hike. The Fed raised interest rates by 0.5% for the first time in 22 years. Now, I always say that when people make predictions, it's almost impossible to be accurate at any high level because there's a million different factors that come into play. So somebody goes, the Fed's going to raise rates today, the first time in 20-something years at 0.5%, which is a significant, we're super low right now, but it's still a significant thing. And most people are expecting that they're going to continue to be raising rates. So when they raise rates, is that good or bad for the stock market in general? It's bad. Why is it bad? Because when you raise interest rates, it makes it more expensive to buy stuff. Because most people buy stuff on credit, big stuff, cars, homes, They buy furniture on layaway, interest rate, credit cards. Things get more expensive. So if things are more expensive, you tend to buy less of it. If you buy less of it, that slows things down, right? So that's not good for the overall economy, not good for businesses. So if you know that ahead of time, hey, the Fed is going to raise interest rates on this day, then a smart, intelligent person would say the stock market's going to go down. But me not being smart, I go, you can't predict it because who the heck knows? So guess what happens? Look up top. Look up top. Okay? Unbelievable. Dow's up 900 points. The S&P's up 124. The Nasdaq's up 400. The reality, you should just look to the right, which is the percentages. You really shouldn't talk points because the bigger the numbers, it sounds impressive, but it's really percentages. So everything was up 2-3% on the day, which is a significant increase for the day. The day the market, they announced rates, instead of the market going down, it went up. That's pretty impressive, isn't it? Who would have thunk it? Nobody would have thought that. Okay. So that was Wednesday. We go, woof. Okay. The market went up. Yes. Now, by the way, this is for people that think short term, right? Market went up. Thank God we dodged a bullet. Yes. Yes, we dodged a bullet. So that was Wednesday. What happens Thursday? The market goes down even more than it went up. Even more. It goes down between 3 to 4%, depending upon what you're looking at. So you go, wait a second. If you could talk to the market like it was a person, and it isn't, but if you could, you'd look at it and you go, are you bipolar? Like, what's going on? You're excited, now you're sad, you're depressed, you're suicidal, you're on top of the world. One day, hey, we're going to take over. Oh my God, this is the worst thing in the world. Like, what happened in 24 hours that caused you to go from things are great to things suck? How is that possible? Did you suddenly have different information? Did everything change? No. No, who knows what happened? Again, sometimes they say a million, sometimes they say a billion, sometimes they say a trillion, okay? Big difference in those numbers, by the way. But what I'm really trying to communicate is there's such an unbelievable amount of different amounts of information. There's no way in the world that you and I can accurately predict what happens. So you can't. That's why I wanted to show that to you. Because when people say, I heard this person on TV and this is what they said, everybody thinks this is going to happen. Whenever you think that, I'm telling you, it's going to be the opposite. I was on a call once. I won't say what the call was, but it was a call, Primerica call. When I say Primerica, not Primerica home office, but Primerica like the field was doing a call training, a hierarchy type of thing. And the person says to me, they're going to interview me. And they go, before I get on, they go, hey, one of the questions I want to ask you is, how do you predict what's going to happen? When you get on with a client, like what information do you use so you can say to them, this is how you know when the market's peaked. This is how you know when they should get out of this and get into this and blah, 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 blah. And this was a very successful person that was saying this. And I said to them, I go, what the hell do I know about that? And then I said, what do you know about that? I go, we have a securities license. We're not economists. I said, and by the way, economists don't know anything about that. Economists just guess. They just use all this information that they have access to, which, by the way, is not enough information, right? Because there's millions of things, and they look at hundreds of things. I go, how in the way? My job isn't to tell them, hey, get out of the utilities and get into whatever. I go, we use long-term smart strategies. So now I'm talking to clients, and clients are saying to me, oh my gosh, look what's happening in the market. And I say, yeah, it's really getting ugly out there. Well, what do you think I should do? And I say, has anything changed in your life? Have your goals changed? Has your access to money changed? Is this still money that you're not touching for, I'll just make up an example, 10 years? And they say, well, no, everything's the same, but it's really scary. And I go, now, always agree. Absolutely, it is scary. It's never enjoyable to see this type of thing. And I want you to know, we'll get through it as a country. It's going to be ugly. It's probably better for you not to watch. You should probably look away. And we'll get through it. Now, for older clients, I tend to work with older clients. They'll relate to this, what I'm about to say to you. In the late 70s, early 80s, we had very high inflation. The Fed chairman was Alan Greenspan. And Alan Greenspan did something, which is he bludgeoned inflation to death. So what do I mean by he bludgeoned it to death? He went rate hike, 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 and he just kept raising rates and raising rates and raising rates and raising rates until everything in the economy went down. It forced a recession, everything slowed down, and it crushed inflation. Crushed inflation. Was it a pleasant process to go through? No. It was like having your appendix removed or something like that. Okay, it was surgery. You go, I'm not going to enjoy this. And they go, well, we're going to put you under so you're not going to feel the pain of this, okay? It's kind of like just close your eyes for a year and a half, something like that. But what happened? After that was over, the stock market went like, actually not like this, it went like this for the next 15, 18, 20 years. It was unbelievable. It was off to the races, off to the races. So when I talk to people, I'll say to them, we're not going to enjoy the process of having the government raise rates a lot. We're not. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs and a lot of craziness that goes on with this. And we'll get through it. And we'll get through it. Now, I'll give you an example of something that I used to say to people. I haven't said this lately, but I said it during the pandemic when we were first locked in our houses. And people were like, oh my gosh, I'm so worried. Every single day I turn on the TV, every day I look at my account. Remember, during those, there was a 33-day period of time the market was down 33%. That's the worst in our lifetime. Okay? Worst in our lifetime. What I said to people was this. I said, do you know what it's like? I said, imagine if somebody that you loved was going through open heart surgery and you said to the doctor, oh my gosh, I'm so worried. And the doctor said, listen, I got this. They're going to survive. They're going to be fine. We got it on time. They're going to be fine. Thank God you got it to me. I'm the right person. Everything's going to be fine. And then you said to them, can I watch the surgery? And the doctor says, listen, you can watch the surgery. Let me tell you the first thing I'm going to do. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut open their chest and I'm going to crack open their ribs and you're going to pass out. That's what watching your account every day is going to be like. You're going to want to pass out. So I would tell you it's probably better if you just look away, let the market do what the market's going to do. We'll wake up down the road and we'll be fine. That's the way that I talked to clients during the pandemic. And it went like this, and then it went like this. And guess what history has taught me? The same exact thing is going to happen. For those that are newer, it's really, really scary because you go, oh my gosh, what if this is different? It isn't different. Yeah, but it isn't. Yeah, but this one, it isn't different. Yeah, but it's a different president. Doesn't matter. Yeah, but it's a different Congress. Doesn't matter. It's a different Senate. Doesn't matter. Yeah, but it's a different this. Doesn't matter. Yeah, but it's Russia. It doesn't matter. Yeah, but it's this. Doesn't matter. Yeah, but now we have this. Doesn't matter. Yeah, but technology. It doesn't matter. Yeah, but you don't realize how much debt we have. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It is what it is, what it is. Those that don't study history are doomed to repeat it. The markets go down, the markets go up. It was true in the 1700s, in the 1800s, in the 1900s, in the 2000s. It'll be true in the 2500s. Human nature will never change. More people selling than buying causes things to go down. People are scared right now. More people are selling. When will it go up? When more people start buying. When will people start buying? People will start buying when they go, oh my gosh, the prices are so low, which we're going to get to in just a moment. Now that I just said that, I realized that I might not have as much time for Q&A as I thought I did. I just realized I promised I would cover PE ratios with all of you. Okay, so let me cover the next piece with you, okay? So the next thing is this is the history for the last 40 years of the Federal Reserve rates. Now look at this. This is the early 80s. We're almost at 20% here. Okay. Now you don't see the late 70s as they were raising. Okay, these are super high rates. That's why people were getting mortgages at 20%. Then it went down. It's like, again, watching somebody play with a yo-yo, right? Then 1992, it goes up a little bit, then down, then it goes up a little bit, then goes down, right? Now, what happened right here, okay? Right here, this is the mortgage banking real estate crisis that hits in 2007, 2008. Everything starts to blow up. So what do? They lower rates so much that it's basically at zero. For years, this is what most of you have experienced your adult life. This is what most of you have experienced as a representative with Primerica. Then they started to raise rates because we started to have a better economy. Then they went, we better lower rates again a little bit. And then they started to raise rates here. So even with the raising rates, it's still very low historically. Now, will they keep raising rates? Most likely, and they'll probably get it, boom. Will it go back to here? Hopefully not. But I do believe that they will take a playbook out of the late 70s, early 80s, which is we got to handle this, and we let it go too long. We got to handle this big time. Now, we're going to move to the part that I said about politics, which I don't want to talk politics. I want to just talk about honesty in understanding things when we talk about why I love the idea of people contributing to Roths. Okay? Here it is. We're going to pass by this. The administration will reduce the deficit by what he called a record amount on Wednesday, the same day the Federal Reserve is widely expected to raise interest rates by 0.5 percentage point. Okay, quote, this week my administration released new information that we're on track to cut the federal deficit $1.5 trillion by the end of this fiscal year. The biggest decline in a single year ever in American history, Biden said in remarks in the Roosevelt Room. Why is this important? Because bringing down the deficit is one way to ease inflationary pressures. Okay, if you hear that, you would go, oh my gosh, that's unbelievable. $1.5 trillion down. That's wow. That's absolutely amazing. I will tell you right now that it's a very dishonest statement. And the reason it's dishonest is because it's very misleading. Now, a Republican would have made the exact same statement. So don't get on me because, well, that means you don't like Biden. I don't talk politics. It's a dishonest statement because here's the reality. The reality is this is our annual debt deficits, okay, since 2001. Now, in 2001, we had a surplus. Woohoo! We actually had more money come in than we spent. Isn't that amazing? You and I have to live our lives that way. We make this, we spend that, okay? The government makes this, spends that. Now, every single year. Now, watch this. You ready? Here's Republican, Democrat, okay? I might be off by a little bit in years, okay? This is Bush. Everybody went, oh my gosh, this is unbelievable. Look how much he's spending. Now, this is after 9/11. We spent a bunch of money, terrorism, homeland security, so forth and so on. Started to go down. Then we got hit with the mortgage banking real estate crisis, so they did all the bailouts. That came in. Then Obama came in and had to spend more money on the bailouts, and everyone, oh my God, this is so terrible. Look at how much money Obama's overspending on everything. Then it started to go down, and he went, hey, look at what a great guy I am because I'm spending less and less, but it was still more than was being spent here. Then he leaves office, Trump takes over, it's going up and up and up, and everybody's going, oh my gosh, look how much he's out. Now the pandemic hits, it goes up dramatically. Biden takes over. Okay, Biden takes over his first year in office. It's at $2.7 trillion for the year. Now, Biden just said, remember, we're going to drop this by $1.5 trillion, the biggest in history. If you're at 2.7 trillion and it drops by $1.5 trillion, what is left? 1.2 trillion. 1.2 trillion is still right around here. Right around here. It's still, if you knock out the pandemic, we are still at all-time record highs. That is a very dishonest statement to say, hey, look, we're doing a great job because this is going to help inflation. That's like a person who says, I used to spend $5,000 too much over what I make per month. Now I only spend $3,000 a month. I'm doing a great job. No, you're not doing a great job. You're still, hey, I'm an alcoholic. I used to have 20 drinks a day. Now I only have 11 drinks a day. Okay, okay, listen, you could say, hey, I used to smoke 2 packs, now I smoke 1 pack. Okay, I get it. I get that you're trying to say we're going in the right direction. But that's not helping inflation. Okay, helping inflation is having a surplus, spending less than what you make. Overspending hurts inflation, contributes to inflation. That's not an accurate statement. Now, why am I showing that to you? Because through all of the administrations, Republican and Democrat, crisis, whether it's 9/11, mortgage banking crisis, pandemic, whatever, okay, the deficit keeps going up, the debt keeps going up, and because the debt keeps going up, which is now over 30 trillion, my fundamental belief, my core belief is the taxes ultimately will be raised. Now, not an economist, I could be wrong, but that is one prediction that I'll make, which is that 20, 30 years down the road, we will see much higher taxes because we will see a debt, not of 30 trillion, but of 100 trillion, or maybe, God forbid, $200 trillion. And we will have such massive payments, just like you could have a mortgage or credit cards or car. You go, oh my gosh, look at my payments. It's the same thing with the government. The government will have these massive payments. And there will not be a conversation about, well, Elon Musk should pay his fair share. There will be a conversation about everybody has to pay more. So I love the idea of Roth IRAs because at least there's a portion of money that when somebody looks at their account, they go, that's my money. That's not my money and the government's money. That's my money. When a person has $1 million in their 401k, they go, I got $1 million. And we go, hey, congratulations, you're a millionaire. You're not a millionaire. Feels like you're a millionaire. We brag about that you're a millionaire. You ain't a millionaire. Why? Because the moment you go to touch the money, you got to share it, right? Just like if it was a joint account, if Oscar and I have $1 million in an account, I don't say I have $1 million. Oscar and I have $1 million. I got a half, he's got a half, right? If I got a 401k with $1 million in there and it's before tax contributions, I might have 700,000 of that money, or 750, or 600, or whatever, right? But not all of that's mine. And if taxes go up in the future, 500 of that could be mine, or 400, or God forbid 300 or 200,000 of that could be mine. But if it's in a Roth, $1 million of that's mine. So I love the idea of doing that. I had a conversation with clients where they put their CPA on the phone with a Zoom with me. This was on Monday. And I have to tell you, this was very uncomfortable. I was not looking forward to this. Okay, we had done a backdoor Roth. The CPA said that it caused taxes, can't cause taxes. I had called up a census, that's the Jedis. They had said no, everything's fine. Their CPA said no, it's still tax. So I called my CPA. I said, is there something I'm missing? My CPA went, no, you're right. I went online, I'm studying this thing. I'm like, what is going on? So they go, you got to talk to our accountant. He made us pay taxes on it. We paid it. So I went, okay. So I get on with the accountant, and I said to the CPA, I said, listen, you're the expert, I'm not the expert. I said, I have a question for you based on what they make. I said, when they put money into their IRA, was that a before or after tax contribution? He said, it's an after tax contribution. I said, okay. When they convert the after tax to a Roth, is there any was there any taxes involved in that? Was there any gain there? He said, no. I said, should there be any taxes? He said, absolutely not. I said, okay, then why was this a taxable thing? And basically it came down to miscommunication on something that was said earlier, had nothing to do with what we did. Nothing. So 30 seconds, I'm going, good riddance. Everything's cool. Now, while I'm on there, he goes, but I'm curious. He goes, I never see people do Roth conversions at a young age. Why did you recommend? Because I also recommended they converted a small IRA. He goes, I never see that. He goes, I only see that with older people where they're in low tax brackets in retirement, and now they want to do a conversion. And so I went through exactly what I just went through with you. Taxes are going to be higher in the future. They're doing very well financially. They'll probably continue to make more and more, want to do it. And you could see, now this is a guy who literally, he's almost retired at this point. He's been doing taxes for 48 years. And he had never considered what I said. His eyes got wide. And he started shaking his head going, wow, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Because he never thought outside of just taxes, like today, immediately today. He didn't think long term with it. It was always about how can I save $10, $100, $1,000 in taxes today. Okay, enough about all of that. All right, let me just make sure that I got nothing beyond that. All right, that should be everything. All right, so the last thing that I want to be able to that I want to cover with you before we go to some Q&A, if we have time for Q&A, is I want to do PE ratios. Last week I was talking about price earnings ratios. So what is a PE ratio? For those that are securities licensed, you had to learn this to get licensed, but we don't really talk it. Clients don't talk it. We don't talk it. So it isn't something I'm going to discuss with you so that you can say, well, boy, now I can dazzle everybody with my price earnings conversations. But I just want you to be aware of it. So what does it mean? Let's say a company, I'm going to use super simple numbers. Okay, Oscar's got a business. Oscar's business makes $100 a year in profit, and he's got 100 shares of stock in his business. So what you would say is every share makes $1 of profit. You all get that? $100 of profit, 100 shares, every share has $1 profit. So if I own one share of stock in Oscar's company, my one share makes $1. Shake your head if you get that. Okay. The question is, how much is that one share worth? Well, let's say that share's worth $20. Well, they would say it's selling at a PE ratio of 20 to 1. And what that means is I'm paying $20 to buy the share to get $1 of earnings. Now, if I paid $25, it would be 25 to 1. If I paid $10, it's 10 to 1. 100 would be 100 to 1. Okay, you all get that? So clearly, lower is better. But interestingly enough, every industry has its own kind of band or ratio that they kind of go with. So banking, insurance tends to be lower because those are slower growth industries. Technology tends to be faster growth, so they have much higher things. So I wanted to be able to show something to you. Let me see if I can find it. All right, so let's start here. And I want you to see how I did this, okay? Amazon, this is their ticker symbol, but Amazon, literally you type in Amazon ticker, and the first thing that comes up is this. You scroll down, and what does it say right here? PE ratio. Okay, you all see that? Shake your head if you see that. Now, what does it say the PE ratio is? Don't worry about the 0.83. It's 54. So if I want to buy Amazon today, I'm spending $54 to get $1 of earning. Now, Amazon, let's look at 1 year ago. Okay, not even 1 year ago. Okay, back in April. So I guess I can go back. Let's go here. Here we go. Okay, back in March, it was at 3,300. Today it's at 2,300. Okay, so back in March, the PE might have been at 70 or 80, right? So if I loved Amazon and I was willing to spend $80 to get $1 of earnings, how do I feel now that I can spend $54 to get $1 of earnings? If I still think Amazon's a good company, I would be this is much more attractive, isn't it? Now, I want you to think about this as real estate. Okay, this is easier for people to understand with real estate. I was talking to a real estate agent the other day, and she was struggling with things, and I gave her a real estate example, and she went, okay, I get it. I said, imagine for a second that there was a rental property that cost $500,000, but it brought in $25,000 a year of profit. And all of a sudden, the real estate market went down dramatically. And now all of a sudden, it's only worth $300,000. But it's still bringing in the same $25,000 of profit. Would you say that's a better deal or a worse deal? And she said, oh my gosh, I'd say that's a much better deal. And I said, well, let's say it went down from 300 to 200. And she goes, well, it would never go down that low. I said, why? She goes, because people would start to bid up the price. Because eventually people would say $25,000 for $200,000 investment, and you can start raising rents. So eventually you get 30,000 and 35 and 40,000. She goes, people start bidding it up. I said, exactly. That's exactly what happens with the stock market. So the stock market goes down, more people selling than buying, right? Until the prices get so low. When I say prices, it's the PE ratio, right? It used to be 80 to get $1 of Amazon of earnings. Now it's 54. Eventually it gets to a point where people go, that's it. I got to start buying. It's so low. So let's look at different examples. So Amazon is at 54, okay? What else is out there besides Amazon? Let's look at Google, okay? Google is called Alphabet, okay? That's the parent company name. Lord knows why they did that, but it's Alphabet. Okay, their PE ratio is only 20. So you only got to pay $20. That seems like a better deal than Amazon, doesn't it? You only got to pay $20 to get $1 of earnings, okay? Let's look at McDonald's. McDonald's, you pay 26. That's funny. You actually pay more. Okay, you pay $26 for $1 of earnings with McDonald's. Let's go to Costco. Okay, Costco, you pay 40. Interesting, isn't it? You pay $40 to get $1 of earnings there. I want to look one more thing. Bank of America. I just want to pick them out for no particular reason. Okay, Bank of America, 10. $10. Remember I said banks tend to be more conservative, right? So it's $10 for $1 of earnings, okay? Let's, I wonder what JP Morgan is. JP Morgan, I think, is JPM. It is. 9, right? How about, let's do MetLife. Okay, Met, 8. Remember I said banks, insurance companies, right? You pay less because typically they don't grow as fast. So Met, you pay $8 for $1 of earnings. Let's look at our company Primerica, right? Now Primerica actually went down a bunch today. It's $118, which is amazing to me. It's at 12. Primerica tends to have a higher PE ratio than most companies in our industry because we are growing faster than most companies in our industry. So people are willing to pay a little bit more for it, okay? But $12 to be able to do that. So when people talk about prices and they say, oh, that's expensive, that's $1,000. That's an expensive stock. It has nothing to do with the $1,000. It has to do with the earnings per share. See, if I can pay $1,000 for a share, if it makes $500 a share, I'm only paying $2 for $1 of earnings. That's not expensive. On the other hand, if I turn around and I pay $10 for something that makes a penny, right? Now all of a sudden I'm paying $1,000. It's not 1,000. I'm paying 1,000 to get 1,000 to 1 ratio. That's what I'm trying to come up with in my head. So you have to always think PE ratio. Now, what's happening in the market? What's happening in the market is companies are actually earning more money. Now, I want you to look at Primerica. I'm not trying to get you to invest in Primerica stock, okay? But I want you to look at Primerica for a second. Where is it? Here you go. Let's do 1 year, Okay, let's do year to date. That's better. Okay, so look, we were at 156 in the high 150s, 155. Okay, and then all of a sudden, boom! Now we're at 118. That's down dramatically, isn't it? Down dramatically. But guess what they're expecting in the next month when we announce our earnings? They're expecting our earnings are going to be up about 14%. Guess what is happening with most companies in general this year so far? Earnings are going up. So prices are coming down, but earnings are going up. So imagine a rental property that you used to have to pay $500,000 to get $25,000 rent, right? Now all of a sudden we pay $300,000 to get $30,000 rent. It's much more attractive, isn't it? So earnings are going up. Primerica is much more attractive today than it was a year ago. Does that mean that you should buy Primerica? No, I'm not trying to get anybody to invest in anything. Does that mean the stock market tomorrow is going to go up? No. Does that mean earnings will continue to go up? No, because again, the Fed's going to keep raising rates and that'll probably start to at some point start to depress things. But the point is that when people look and they go, oh my gosh, things are so terrible, things are so bad, companies are actually doing really well. Companies are doing really well. The stock market's doing bad, companies are doing really good. And the prices of stocks and the attractiveness of stocks are actually really good. So it's a wonderful time for our clients that are long-term investors. It's a wonderful time for clients to be getting involved in investing. Because again, if you liked it 6 months ago or a year ago, today it's that much better. I loved Primerica stock a year ago. Thought it was wonderful. Primerica a year ago was trading at about 18 to 1. I had to pay $18 to get $1 of earnings. Today it said it was $12 to get one, and we're expecting a month from now they're going to say, hey, our earnings went up 14%. That's that much better, right? And what I didn't say is many of those companies pay dividends. So many of those companies pay a 1% or 2 or 3%. Some companies even make 4% dividends. So in addition to that, you're also collecting the dividends. All of those make those things more attractive. So yes, we're going to have lots of this, and it's probably going to be like watching somebody play with a yo-yo going down the steps until the PE ratios get so low that people go, I'll just make up an example. Oh my God, Amazon's at 15 to 1, it used to be at 150 to 1. Oh my God, no, Amazon's not going out of business. Amazon keeps getting bigger, keeps making more profit, keeps growing, keeps doing whatever. All my stuff is getting delivered in 32 minutes by drones or something like that, right? So it's eventually people are going, we got to start buying it. And we're going to start seeing the stock market go back up, go back up, go back up there. Okay, let's open it up to some Q&A. And we'll open it first to the people that I'm mentoring that earned their spots first. Okay. If they don't have questions, then Jennifer, you can be the first one. Okay, Adam, you're up.
All righty. Good morning, man. This has been awesome. Howard, thank you so much for this morning. We're very, very grateful for you. So I have a question.
Yes.
I have a couple of clients that have pretty significant, well, 3 that come to mind that have significant amounts of money that are sitting in savings accounts, money markets. One of them is a client who sold a home recently. She has about $450,000 in a money market and savings. And I have another client that has somewhere around $300,000 just in savings. And so I know that we focus on long-term. I think for both of these clients, they don't need any, or at least not very much of this money anytime in the next, 5 years. And so I guess, how do you approach a client at this point? Not necessarily because I don't want to sell them the fact, because we don't know what the market's going to do tomorrow, in a month, in 2 months, but helping them to see that it's a fantastic time to look at. I mean, I get it's better than it was a month ago or 3 months ago, right? So look at moving that money now. Maybe and obviously I think buffers are an option with some of that because they have significant amounts of money in other places where they can look at that. But I don't know. I just wanted to get your feedback of kind of how to reach out to those clients.
How old are these clients?
So one of them is 67 and the other one is 51.
Okay, all right. So for the 51-year-old, that's a mutual fund conversation, Adam. And so that conversation, I would be talking to them about inflation. And again, the idea of purchasing power, keeping the money in the bank. We're losing 6, 7, 8% per year over the course of, if you're going to retire at 65, over the course of 14 years. Huge. And I would use an example of a hypothetical. Things go up, down, but the overall trend is up. Perfect time to be getting in. I wouldn't have any problem whatsoever. That's an education thing. With the older person, I would talk to them about a buffer. I would still be talking inflation. And I'd be saying the stock market's the only place that gives us any hope at all to combat inflation. Any other thing that we're doing, basically what we're saying is we're accepting a 6, 7, 8% a year loss in purchasing power. And we can't do that. You don't have enough money. Listen, if you had $20 million, you can say, not a big deal. So I lose little money every single year until the day I die. Okay, I'll be fine, right? But when you have hundreds of thousands, not hundreds of millions, that's different. We can't afford every single year to say I buy less and less and less stuff with this. So absolutely, I'd be talking about a buffer on there.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, Joseph, you're up.
Okay. Hi. Thank you so much. How you explain things so good. You hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
So I have a beginner's question. Like, I understood that when the Fed put the interest rates down, then people went to buy real estate because the mortgages rates were so low.
Yes.
Now, if somebody like now that is very low still would get into a mortgage, I don't know how it works. So is it possible that they lock the interest rate so it's not affected by all the raises that they are going to come in the next 10 years?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, of course. Yeah, a person can get a mortgage today and say, I'm locking it in for 30 years or something like that. They just need to do it quickly because probably we'll continue to see rates going up. But absolutely, somebody can lock in and there's no problem with any of that.
Okay, and the second question is about the earning and PE, the thing.
Yes.
So I understood the real estate example very well because like there's a common knowledge that if you make 10% return a year on a real estate investment is good, decent, and good. But how do you see that in the stock market with these PEs? I mean, I don't know what 54 to 1 means in this field, in this industry.
We don't.
Do people know?
Okay,
people
so
know that?
That's a great question. So the answer is and then I'm going to go to Jen because I want to make sure I can get Jen's question in before we run out of time here. The answer is that's not our world, so it doesn't make a difference to us. I wanted to lift up the hood so that you'd have an understanding of this, but it's not a conversation with a client because we don't pick stocks. We put money in mutual funds. The mutual fund money manager picks the stocks. So we don't have to decide is 54 good or bad. Because 54 is good if you're investing in a company that has great growth potential. So they might look at Amazon and say, man, based on Amazon's going to grow 50% this year. So they might say, we're willing to pay a high multiple. That's the way you would describe it, a high multiple, because it's going to grow so fast. Just like somebody might overpay for real estate if they feel like it's in a fast growing area. On the other hand, if you're looking at a company that's going to grow very slowly, you would say, no, I'm going to have a much lower multiple that I'm willing to pay for it. Okay, Jen, let's go to you. You're muted.
Oh, okay. Sorry, is this Jen or that Jen? Big
Okay.
beer.
Wait, hold on. Jen, you're one of the ones I'm mentoring, right?
Yes.
Okay, then it's Jen Higby.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Jen. 2 client situations next week. So first one, 62-year-old retired guy. He just inherited $300,000 from a death benefit from his mother.
Okay.
He says to me, I'd like to see your top 2 mutual funds from multiple mutual fund companies. His purpose is supplementing income.
Okay. All right. So first, what I would say to him is there is no such thing as a top two.
Right?
Okay, that's kind of like this is literally what I would say to him. Always try to use analogies. That's kind of like saying to a doctor, I want you to show me your top two medications, and then I'll decide which one to take.
You're right. Great analogy.
Okay. So that isn't when we work together, and as an advisor, I don't say it depends. If I'm dealing with somebody who's 20, 25, 30, it's very different than if I'm dealing with somebody who's 62. And it depends on what your needs are, and it depends how we want to take the money. So you want income, you want supplementary income. So before we get to the point where we talk about recommendations, which is what you're trying to jump to, which we will get to, first allow me to do an interview. Just like a doctor sits down and says, before we get to prescriptions, the doctor interviews you first, right? So let me interview you, let me do a full interview, and then we'll get to the recommendation at that point. And at that point, Jen, then you can decide, is it a mutual fund? Is it an annuity that has a living benefit? Is it something that pays a dividend, a bond, whatever, okay?
Excellent.
Okay.
One more.
Yeah, go on.
Second client, he's got 57,000 in a Roth, 235,000 in a traditional IRA, and very small pension coming up. He wants to retire in 3 years. I think a portion should maybe go into something buffered right now, but like a 3-year buffer. But please help me.
All right, first, I would never do a 3-year buffer.
Okay.
The problem with the 3-year buffers are that the downside is minimal.
Okay.
The upside is minimal, so that doesn't work. Additionally, if you look at the market, what you'll see is the reason the buffers are so good is because the chance of the market being down in 5 or 6 years more than 20% is minimal. It does happen, but it's minimal. So first, you're stacking the odds in their favor. They're not going to lose anything. And if they lose something, it'll be greatly diminished. Now, let's look at 3 years. 3 years, you have a chance of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And if all of a sudden they go, well, we only give 10% downside, and the market's down 30%, you now have a client that needs the money, because that's the only reason you would do 3 years, right? They need the money, and they go, oh, thank you very much. I just lost 20% of my money. I don't ever want to put somebody in that position where I'm having that conversation. So I would tell you that you need to be talking to him about, is that a realistic thing? And sometimes I have to have a conversation. And Casey, we'll get to your question next time, okay? And Jen, we'll get to you next time also. I promise the two of you will handle your questions, okay? You just have to remind me. So just send it in chat next time in the very beginning, and I'll make sure that I answer your questions. But Jen, sometimes that's something that we have to do with our clients. You know, in the book that I wrote, one of the things I said is the customer's always right. We don't have customers. We have clients. When you go to McDonald's, you go, I want a Big Mac. They don't go, really? Really? You want a Big Mac with your cholesterol? They don't say that. They just go, fine. You want me to supersize that? Whatever you want is fine, right? But the doctor turns around and says, hey, I deal with patients. An attorney gives it to you straight. Your CPA gives it to you straight, right? So there are times that I have clients that will say to me, just like today, the client said to me, oh, I started taking $2,000, a month more or whatever. And I had to say, hey, we have to be concerned about that. We had a plan. If you want to take it, it's your money. You can do that. But as your advisor, I'm concerned you're going to run out of money. And we really should have a conversation about that. So if you want to retire in 3 years, you can do that. And there might be a risk that in your 70s, late 70s or 80s, that you could run out of money. So let's go through the numbers and let's see if there isn't a way that we can work this out, that we can stack the odds in your favor. And sometimes, Jen, I can explain to people, hey, if you can give me 1 extra year or 2 extra years, magic can happen. So let me give you an example of 2 extra years. 2 extra years is 2 extra years of saving money. 2 extra years of growing your money. 2 extra years of your Social Security growing. 2 extra years of not withdrawing money. 2 extra years means I can put you in a 5-year buffer, right? So now there's programs that are appropriate for you. So I can get somebody very excited about that in terms of the way I talk with you. And even if he can give you 1 year, you can still use a 5-year buffer. even if he's going to retire in 4 years, it'd just be a portion that he wouldn't be touching, you know, for until 12 months after retirement.
Thank
So
you.
that's the way that you want to
I
talk about
did
it.
love this
I just,
video. Thank you so much.
you got it. We're a minute over. God bless all of you. Have a wonderful day, and we will see you all next week.